An Ontario school bus driver has been fired after a viral video depicts the driver dressed in an anime-style schoolgirl outfit while picking up children.
President Trump has hiked the price tag for Canada's inclusion in the Golden Dome Defense Program to 71 billion American dollars.
The House of Commons passed a motion demanding the government pursue a full refund on the funds spent on ArriveCan despite the Liberals' wishes. Hello Canada, it's Thursday, June 19th, and this is the True North Daily Brief. I'm Isaac Lamoureux.
And I'm Geoff Knight.
We've got you covered with all the news you need to know. Let's discuss the top stories of the day and the True North exclusives you won't hear anywhere else. A school bus driver in Woodbridge has been fired following public outrage over a viral video showing him dressed in a Japanese anime-style schoolgirl outfit while picking up children on a residential street. In a statement to CTV News, a spokesperson for the York Catholic District School Board confirmed that the driver has been removed. The spokesperson said, quote, "The company quickly addressed this situation with its employee and the driver will no longer provide busing to and from the school." The video, first shared on Friday, June 13th, shows the male driver stepping out of a landmark student transportation bus wearing a pink pleated skirt, thigh-high stockings, and a sailor-style top. A sign in the front window of the bus reads, "Lolita's Line." The outfit and Lolita Line sign sparked outrage among parents due to the term's disturbing associations. Lolita was popularized by Vladimir Nabokov's 1955 novel of the same name, in which an adult male narrator sexually exploits a 12-year-old girl. In modern usage, it's often associated with a subculture involving the sexualization of young girls in Japanese anime and cosplay genres. The footage shows at least 3 parents confronting the driver outside St. Michael the Archangel Catholic Elementary School. Landmark Student Transportation, which operates the bus scene in the video, has not responded to requests for comment from True North. So, Geoff, how could a man think it is appropriate to pick up children in a fetish costume?
That's a tough one, Isaac. We're talking pink skirt, thigh-high stockings, and a Lolita Line sign plastered on the side of the bus. It's hard to say that there isn't an obvious intent there. But either way, I don't think we're dealing with an individual who's of sound mind here. This guy who got the boot from the York Catholic District School Board on June 18th after the viral video on June 13th might have been having some kind of breakdown, or perhaps this is just what he's into. Maybe he watched a little too much anime and he's taking the cosplay to the next level. I mean, you can try and extend an olive branch and say he's just seeing it as some sort of form of self-expression, oblivious of how it looks to the parents. This driver, who's apparently detached from reality, might have thought this was empowering, not realizing that Western folks see it as a serious red flag around kids. Maybe he was clueless about the professional line he crossed. But let's get real here. Even if that were true, it's no excuse. And it's hard to imagine that he didn't realize this was at least inappropriate. The board's quick axing proves that it was a disaster waiting to happen. And this misstep gains context amid growing public scrutiny of similar boundary-pushing displays like drag queen story hours and performances in front of children, which have fueled debates about appropriateness. Critics argue that events like these sexualize kids. Likewise, reports of drag shows with provocative elements have led to parental outrage over perceived grooming, echoing the reaction to what we're seeing here with this driver's outfit. The driver could have been emboldened by this cultural shift. U.S. President Donald Trump has increased the price Canada would have to pay to join his proposed Golden Dome defense system, should Ottawa choose to participate. Trump told reporters in Alberta during the G7 summit that Canada would have to pay 71 billion US dollars to be included in the proposed military protection program, an increase of up to 10 billion US dollars from what he'd previously announced. Trump told reporters on Monday, quote, "They want to be in? $71 billion. They'll be in the dome." Trump announced plans for the $175 billion land, sea, and space missile defense system during a press conference at the White House last month, and Prime Minister Mark Carney expressed interest in the project shortly thereafter. However, the U.S. president initially said it would cost Canada $61 billion to receive coverage from the missile interception system, which is modeled after Israel's Iron Dome. The additional $10 billion price tag comes after Trump and Carney sat down to meet one-on-one in Alberta. While the two leaders met to hammer out a trade deal amid a months-long tariff dispute, Trump said that the Golden Dome wasn't part of that negotiation, stating that it would have to be a separate deal. The increased price of the Golden Dome is likely to only further sway Canadians' negative opinion of the concept, a majority of whom have already said they don't want to support it. According to a poll conducted last month, 63% of Canadians said they didn't want to participate in funding the project and would prefer to see the federal government prioritize spending money on the Canadian Armed Forces. So, Isaac, is inclusion in the United States' Golden Dome defense system worth the $71 billion price tag?
Well, Jeff, first of all, I want to note that that's the price tag as of today. That doesn't mean it's not subject to change tomorrow or at some future date at Donald Trump's discretion, nor does it mean that this is what the project will actually end up costing. For example, we've seen with our own federal government that there is sometimes a huge discrepancy between what they initially say something will cost and what it ends up costing down the road, which could be tenfold the initial projection. However, in the end, Canada having a modern, space integrated missile defense shield at a time of growing global threats from adversaries like China, Russia, North Korea, and others would definitely be something Canadians would be grateful for if the country was ever subject to an attack. But like you mentioned, the poll said that 63% of Canadians said they'd rather the federal government spend money on the Canadian Armed Forces instead of this project. Although, ironically, recently, the federal government went with neither, as Carney pledged $4.3 billion in support for Ukraine and new Russia sanctions at the recent G7, to which many Canadians online expressed outrage, arguing that Canada should not be funding foreign countries when our country's own debt exceeds $1.263 trillion and the cost of living crisis only worsens. Of course, Carney recently pledged to hit NATO's 2% GDP requirement for defense spending. However, NATO is, of course, eyeing a new 5% target, and the Golden Dome investment would seemingly not count towards this requirement, as it's considered foreign procurement, not a national defense expenditure. Paying for the Golden Dome wouldn't reduce Canada's shortfall in meeting the current 2% target. To get counted, Canada must boost its own defense spending to contribute through NATO managed programs, not through deals with the US. Four people, including a 16-year-old boy, have been arrested after police say they were caught attempting to steal a vehicle from the driveway of Ontario Premier Doug Ford's home early Tuesday morning. Jallo Mohammed, age 23, and Jallo Mohammed, age 23, both of Toronto, have been charged with possession of an electronic device for motor vehicle theft and unlawfully having purchased an automobile master key. Toronto police confirmed the incident took place in the area of Lawrence Avenue West and Royal York Road, the Etobicoke neighborhood where the Premier resides, and the Ontario Premier, Doug Ford, later confirmed it was his residence that was the suspected target. Speaking at an unrelated press conference later that day, Ford brought up the incident himself, describing a dramatic encounter in which suspects came racing down his street. The Premier said, quote, "You want to hear about stupid criminals? So four thugs come racing down my street, masks on, ready to take the car out of the driveway. Surprise, surprise. At 12:30, the two police cars are there. The chase is on." Police said officers observed a suspicious vehicle around 12:30 a.m. with individuals inside wearing masks and slowing near a residential driveway. When they attempted a traffic stop, one suspect fled on foot, police said. Officers allegedly found a key reprogramming device and a programmable master key inside the vehicle. Ford used the incident to reiterate his stance on crime and public safety, saying it underscores the need for stricter sentencing. The Premier is routinely protected by the Ontario Provincial Police, and Toronto police officers are also stationed at his home. Police released the names of all the suspects except for two on account of their age and standard rules regarding youth offenders. The two youth, aged 16 and 17, also face charges, with one accused of failing to comply with conditions related to an earlier release. So, Jeff, who is at fault for the out-of-control crime wave that Premier Ford is describing?
Yeah, the crime wave that Premier Doug Ford describes can't really be pinned on a single culprit, but points to a mix of systemic failures and policy gaps under both provincial and federal oversight. Ford himself has blamed lax sentencing and judicial leniency, arguing that the arrest of four suspects, including two youths, a 16-year-old and 17-year-old with prior release conditions, shows the need for stricter punishments. The presence of a key reprogramming device and master key suggests organized crime tactics, possibly linked to a rise in auto thefts, with Ontario seeing a 45% increase in vehicle thefts from 2022 to 2024, per provincial police stats. Ford's push for tougher laws reflects his view that the justice system, influenced by federal sentencing guidelines under the Liberal government, isn't doing enough to deter repeat offenders. However, fault also lies with broader societal and governmental shortcomings. The involvement of young offenders hints at underlying issues like poverty and lack of youth programs. Ontario cut $10 million from community safety grants in 2023, which some criminologists link to rising juvenile crime. The Ontario Provincial Police, tasked with Ford security, and Toronto Police, who responded at 12:30 a.m., represent a reactive approach rather than a preventative one, suggesting underfunding or poor coordination in crime hotspots like Etobicoke. Federally, Prime Minister Mark Carney's focus on trade and climate over public safety, with no major crime initiatives since April, leaves provinces like Ontario to grapple with a 15% spike in violent incidents in 2025. The crime wave Ford highlights is thus a shared failure. Provincial policy gaps, federal neglect, and socioeconomic pressures fueling a cycle of lawlessness.
That's it for today, folks. Thanks for tuning in. You can stay on top of new episodes every weekday by subscribing to the Daily Brief on iTunes and Spotify. Also, while you're at it, make sure to hit us with a 5-star rating and please leave a review.